Hello everyone, my name is Brandon Niven and this is a final project presentation for my Golf Fantasy League web application. For the software requirements specification, the purpose outlines system requirements for software functionality, performance, and constraints. For the scope, the Golf Fantasy League website allows users to create fantasy golf leagues, select professional golfers for real-world tournaments, and compete based on the performance of selected golfers. Users will accumulate fantasy points and view leaderboards on the website. Backend services will support secure authentication, league management, and data integration with the Data Golf external API. The product features include user login, league creation, tier-based golfer selection for league participants, and fantasy scoring with leaderboard generation and updates. For the user, they must have internet access, a web browser to search for and access the URL, and a laptop or PC because it is not yet available on other devices. For the functional requirements, we have the user account handling and storage, which will store user account data, the league creation, where users can create leagues, user and golfer data collection, where we collect real-time data from the Data Golf API for tournament results and collect user picks for the golf tournaments from the users, and league and tournament leaderboards, which generates leaderboards based on the user's fantasy points. For non-functional requirements, we have reliability, where the application should be able to recover well and continue to operate without any errors. Maintainability and portability, where the codebase should follow modular design principles for easy updates. Security, the application must be transmitted over HTTPS, and user passwords must be hashed using bcrypt. Usability, the application should have an easy interface for users with minimal effort, and the application should have the same user interface for every user. And then for performance, all page redirections should take no longer than 5 seconds, and scores must update within 1 minute of the tournament results being available. Next, we move to the software design document. For the architectural patterns and styles, the GFL application uses a model view controller. The backend, built with Node.js and Express, handles data processing and database operations. The front end is developed using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It interacts with the backend services via HTTP requests, and MongoDB is used for storing user accounts, league data, player picks, tournaments, and scoring history. Now onto the components. We have the login component, where the front end will request user information, send it to the backend, where it will be authenticated, and a token is returned. The front end will then store the session information. For the data structures and algorithms of this component, we have the JSON object for user data, and bcrypt will be used for hashing, and JSON Web Token will be used for the session. For the league component, the user will create the league, backend will store the information to the database, and frontend will show the league in the user dashboard. For the data structures and algorithms of this component, MongoDB collections for leagues, which will contain nested arrays of members and filtering group data by league ID. Next, we have the golfer picks component, where the user selects their picks via the tier list, and the backend validates the tiers and selections to then send to the database. Here we have arrays of picks associated with the user and the official World Golf Ranking based tiering logic for picks. Lastly, we have the scoring component, where the backend will retrieve data from Data Golf API and compare it to the player's picks. It will then calculate fantasy points for the user and display the information to the respective leaderboards on the front end. For the algorithms of this, we have the points calculation algorithm, which will be based on user selected golfer placements in the tournament. For the database schema, we will have collections for users, leagues, tournaments, player picks, golfer data, and leaderboards. All of these will have corresponding IDs that can then be connected together with their IDs. Data flow between components. All components will interact with each other between the front end, back end, and database. First, the user will need to log in, where they will then be able to create a league and access current leagues. Then they will be able to access tournaments, make selections on golfers for tournaments, and view leaderboards, which will be created through fantasy points calculated through the scoring system. Lastly, we have the software test document, where we will cover test cases, results, defect analysis, and summary. Here are the test cases. For our first test case, we verify user login functionality with valid credentials that ended in a pass. For the second test case, we verified successful league creation with correct inputs that also resulted in a pass. For our third test case, we verified tier-based player selection functionality for the tournaments. This also was a pass. And then we had test case 4, which verified fantasy scoring, leaderboard generation, and update functionality. This actually resulted in a fail because the data for the computations were correctly stored in the database, but the leaderboards actually generated all zeros. We put a defect on ID on this, and next we'll go over the defect analysis. The description of the defect was all the zeros were displayed for the leaderboards. We reproduced this through all the steps we did for the test. We were able to actually find the bug, and this has been fixed since then, and we have our fixed version here, as you can see, 1.0.1. For the test summary, the total test cases executed was 4. Our pass to fail ratio was 3 passed with 1 failed, with 1 major defect found. The system contained 1 major defect in the leaderboard generation feature, which directly affected the functional integrity of the software. This defect has since been fixed, and the system is now stable with all major features working correctly. Future plans for this project include making this application available to tablets and mobile devices, creating a mobile application, and allowing other tours selection for the users, including the LIV, LPGA, and Korn Ferry Tour. Thank you for tuning in for my final project presentation, and I hope you have a good one.